Hi, my name is Karen Holmes. I'm the founder and director of the World Peace Organization for the One World Government. Yesterday I did a video kind of explaining how the organization is set up and how it functions, but I didn't carry it through all the way to the end. I wanted to keep it short. What I wanted to do today is continue on with that idea. As I said yesterday, I set the principles for the organization, and then the boards with the three levels of the organization. I said the principles, the boards will take it to the higher level because they do a better job. I'm an amateur at just about everything, and then they'll take it forward to the and apply the information, the principles according to the laws and things like that. And then I'll talk about the boards because we have three boards, and then I'll do that later and in a different video. And then the principle or the combination of both of those are what sets the projects. Okay, so yesterday I stopped with the idea of the crisis center and being in different cities. Each of the crisis centers will be based on the channels, the psychics in each of the cities. So let's say that our crisis center will have eight channels from the local area, and the channels will help people when they come in. They're having any kind of problem, let's say a life issue, and this will help. Let's say the first channels will be Lady Gaia and I Am That I Am God, will kind of help everybody get back on. And then the 8 channels will go through each of the steps of like the dealing with the plan idea that goes around. And then the final one. So each of the channels will do newsletters also. Yesterday I started a new catalog for the newsletters. I've been working on my catalog for the books, but the other publishing materials, but this is going to be, like I said, it transitions from the idea, let's say, of the conference in Europe because people are frustrated with it. The UN isn't working. Then it goes to the government proposals, giving the governments the chance to go function on a higher level. Then the newsletters, if people are going to be looking at that, each of the newsletters, a World Peace newsletter is the overview one, and I'm the editor of the publisher of that idea. I'm the one responsible for that. But each of the projects will have a newsletter too, and then they'll go through the same series. They have to go to the conference in Europe. All the independent members will go to the conference in Europe, where each of us is parallel to a country. So as we work on this, we are solving the problems in the country, but we're thinking about the conference in Europe. Then we're thinking about the government proposal. Does this solve the problem in our family? And then it goes on to the next one, and it goes to the books and how the application of the books. If we can publish newsletters, we have government proposals, we can publish newsletters, and if we can publish newsletters, we can publish, I can channel books, and the channels can channel books, and then we can work apply that, bringing in the people, and then helping solve the problems based on the books. And then the next step is the idea of the tours, going on tours and allowing all the channels to do that. And then we're going to have a program where in the tent tour where we go along and work with the governments, local governments, city governments, and where we have our bookstores, and the crisis center will be established in there. And then we'll work with the local governments to solve the problems that are associated in, they'll learn how to do plans and how to become a more effective idea, because the frustration is the governments get in there with the idea that they have the power, but they don't know how to solve problems. So now this is where we are now, is we're going to take that to the people and allow in the tent tours, and then bring in local government, the school board, maybe the local channels, the idea of the business people, the problem solvers. Let's say the different departments of the government, might be like the whatever, people who are interested. Anybody who's kind of an activist kind of person is welcome to come. The churches might want to come. We'll make it possible for the work with the local governments, and then they can bring in the people in the area, but also the channels, because then the channels, as we go through the tent tour, we'll be setting it up so that what we do here they can apply in their own city too and solve problems. The other thing is that if one of our projects has becoming president of the United States. Now, we have an election that's coming up now, and the election is going to be very contentious. There's the Trumpism is becoming very, very entrenched in the local cities and things like that, school boards and things like that. But it's also going to be the counterpoint of that, because people don't necessarily like that idea. Not everybody likes Donald Trump and wants to turn responsibility over to him for making America great or prosperous again. So the local communities will be the places, let's say, where we have our centers. We're not supporting anybody. We're just setting up the structure that allows the local, these people who want to run for president in the future, or any other local government, they can go to that city, and then those cities will help to set up a structure that will, let's say, solve problems, and then any candidates who come through that area and go through this program, and as we set that up, they'll be able to go on a citywide area, and then so the candidates will congregate in those areas, and that's where they can start the initial debates. Anyone can run for president of the United States, and that's I would say that's the one great thing that Donald Trump did. The one great thing that he did was to make it possible for anybody to run for president of the United States. But now what we have to do is we have to purify that idea, and we have to have somebody who functions from his or her own capacity, who knows how to solve problems, rather than functioning based on power gains. So that's the structure we're setting up there. Now the next step as we go forward is if we can do that, and the people, hey, I'm a very average person, about as average as anybody can get. And, I was a working person. I worked in big box stores. I worked in a store. I sold, believe it or not, I sold makeup and perfume in a store like Macy's, or it was Dayton Hudson in Minneapolis. Okay, so anyway, what happened was, I'm an average person, but if anybody can run for president, and they have to do that, but we're not really yet prepared. As I said, in my dental office, the dental office I worked in, I was a dental hygienist for many years. I could talk one-on-one to people, but getting up in front of a whole bunch of people, it took working on this YouTube channel to do that. So now, how do you prepare yourself if you're an average person like me and you can solve problems? How do you prepare yourself for getting up and doing that, and actually doing that? So the next step, let's say, is to take your idea and your solutions, and that's one of our projects, is to how to become president of the United States, is the program that we set up where we're going to be solving problems and teaching people how to solve problems. It's not necessarily that we're supporting one person for president. We're supporting everybody for president, and it's a program that we're setting up. Equality, okay, and capacity. These are the ideas of the letter to the Supreme Court, the 7 principles. So as people start to learn how to become more confident in solving problems, and then we take that idea with with each of us, each of the 200 members of the organization is parallel to a country. If we can bring peace amongst 200 people, hey, with the whole world, it's no problem because we did it, okay, amongst ourselves. Then what we do is we take our idea of being able to solve problems and apply it with this idea. We take our presence out into the local people solving problems, and then it's one easy, simple step. Easy for people to take that next step where we have government contracts. And then that's our advisory step, where we take that next step and we work with the foreign governments on this to help them solve problems. I am standing up my government proposal. My family is parallel to Iraq, so I'm responsible for introducing the exit strategy for Iraq, and then working as an advisor to the Iraqis and set up the structure, first of all, amongst us, and then I can talk there. I'm an average person who's, let's say, leveraging myself up to the point where I become an advisor to governments. Okay, and that's what everybody else is going to be doing. And then as we do that, then we can come back. We have the other government, and then we have the U.S. government, and that's where we can work on failed policy that prevented, let's say, if this is Iraq and this is the U.S. government, our failed policy when it was like this, well, we're going to tell you what to do. That doesn't work. Iraq is a sovereign country. Okay, see how that works? We're going to advise Iraq, but then we also have to come back and find this solution where these people, this failed policy between these two countries basically got us into the trouble in the first place. So let's say that the board, the person who's going to be responsible for that idea, is going to be dealing with this idea also, coming up with all these different ideas and solutions and figuring it out. And that's how one of the ways we purify the legal system is through our government proposals. And this idea of the planning, the track our progress planning. Then, once we purify the legal system and the failed policy, there'll be 60 failed policies that we address. The final thing is Iraq and the United States are the first two countries, you could say, that come together and then go there. They can go to the conference in Europe, and then we're back to where we were before. Instead of a summit where nobody ever gets anything done and it's all back games and all of this stuff, and it never brings world peace, then what we'll do is we'll have a conference where we address the as everybody comes in, they become advocates to for the idea, and they'll stand up and demonstrate that it works. So we have, like, my exit strategy for Iraq addresses the idea of where true power comes from. It helps to set up the structure of solving disputes in court rather than the battlefield. And then the people, we can just go on and read, live our lives, and without interference, no more wars. It's going to become a diplomatic thing where, and if there's disputes, instead of sanctions, which are very oppressive to the people, the economy, why would anybody put sanctions on another country? It's because that's the only thing they have right now. It's a failing policy because it's like two world leaders and they can't get along with each other and they're playing power games on each other. And this is what's happening right now between the United States and Russia. Okay, we're going to sanction you, but international law, you're breaking international law, so we're going to sanction you. And it basically accelerates and devolves into a war and cyber problems and expensive wars, and that are expensive in terms of lives and infrastructure and resources and everything. So it's kind of like, hey, can't people just get along with each other and come up with a common goal. And that's where it's a better idea to create win-win agreements between people and between nations, and every nation will have a niche, and will have a vocation, let's say, based on its resources, and the international government will help our organization, and the international government that comes from this will help the nations develop their natural resources and protect them, so that the people don't ever have to go through the hell of war again. Basically, that's where we are right now. Now, there's going to be two government proposals to begin with, and that is the Iraq setting up the structure for the courts, international courts, because the United States is not a signatory of the international court system, and disputes are never being resolved. And so the United States is the contingency for the plan. For the United States has to go along with it, but it's the exit strategy, or the constitutional amendment idea. And all they have to do, they don't have to say, I'm going to vote for this, I'm not going to vote for this, I don't like this idea. And then basically it's like kind of like the filibuster idea. I don't like the idea of the voting rights, but I'm going to do it because the Republicans are putting pressure on me. No. So we're going to deal with the one of the projects has to stand on the principles where anybody can run for president of the United States. This, like I said, Donald Trump set us up for that, so anybody can run. The political parties are kind of collapsing behind this, so we're going to just kind of like create an international government and then come back and kind of purify the legal system and make the changes. But that's not completely true, because the constitutional amendment has to address this idea. Okay, now I'm going to give you one last thing about the constitutional amendment. Okay, I'm talking about the exit strategy for Iraq, but the constitutional amendment idea, my organization, I'm a 501c3, as I said yesterday, I can't lobby Congress. I can't start a grassroots movement. The only thing I can do is help people to create the life they want, which is one of our inalienable rights. I'm standing on the unalienable rights that you have a voice in your government. These are unalienable rights because they counter, these principles counter games like terrorism. A voice in your government counters terrorism. And right now there's worries about terrorism. The right to create your life is an unalienable right, because so all of this is looking at the existing structure. You have the right to create the life. You have the soul agreement with God, the creator of us all, to fulfill your purpose in life, to undo the damage that you've done in past lives. And then the other one is to be treated fairly and equally, because that's what starts wars, when somebody's more important than somebody else. If you look at Donald Trump, for example, and he's saying, I'm really important, I'm rich, I'm doing all these things. Well, that kind of implies that his other people, the people who support him, aren't, and they're supposed to put him on a pedestal. That's what starts genocides. Okay, so we're looking at, my project looks at where power comes from, where true power comes from. So we're not putting one person on a pedestal. We're going to deal with all the problems like term limits, balanced budget, and all the things that they haven't been able to get through a constitutional amendment. We're going to clump them together as part of this one with the international government. Excuse me. We're calling for an Article 5 Amendment Convention because it's a structural change to the Constitution. A structural change because we need to add an additional layer to the government so that it's basically it basically allows us to participate on the international level. Okay, so there's going to be two presidents. There's going to be one who functions under the plan. who functions basically on the international level and never works on the national level, and then a national level president who doesn't ever go on the international level. So basically, there's going to be term limits where people are going to just be there, do their job, and then come home. It's not going to be a power base. It's not going to be political parties because there's 200 countries. Imagine 200 states, 200 countries. And I'll go into that structure a little bit more in another video about how that's going to work. But as I said, anybody can run for president, there's going to be the international president and then the national president. And they'll be like two soldiers fighting back to back, representing our country. One will work this way. The United States will never, ever go into another country, tell them what to do. We'll never go in. NATO is going to be unnecessary. It'll be obsolete. The UN will be obsolete. The European Union will basically be gone because it's basically an economic structure, an agreement between these countries. And the economic structure basically will be based with the international government and making win-win agreements between countries, which set the stage, sets the stage for future agreements. They build trust between the countries. It creates this network of nations all working together, sharing their talents against their natural resources, and the international government will make trade agreements between them. So in the departments, there's 11 departments, and I'll go into that in another video. I've got lots of videos possible here. And then basically what they'll do is solve the problems. The experts will be doing it. I can solve the problems that happened. You see, by supporting the plan for the international government, and I told you this before, at the prayer circle, we prayed for people in crisis for the 100-mile radius. 100-mile radius. Okay, so think about how this is playing out with our prayers that we did. We had people in crisis, so we're setting up crisis centers where anybody can come in free, because basically it'll be supported through the books and the newsletters and things like that. We'll be selling books, and people will be recommended to buy the books. Half the money from the books goes to support everything. The other half goes for reprints and then to support the people who channeled it and do all the printing part of it. Okay, so we have to have enough money to cover reprints and things like that. And then the people, we have the right to make a living based on our talents and gifts. But then the rest of it, it all goes to the organization and the projects that are there. So anything that comes from that government or that project will go back in. It's divided up in that same way. It goes to the people who do it, and then it goes to solve the problems on the international level, and then support the international government, and then the people, the country that it's in. So I'll explain all this in greater depth in the future, but right now I wanted to just say that the 200 people here before we can stand up, we have to be able to stand up and be able to speak and explain our projects. Nobody speaks for anybody else's project. So anything that you may have heard from somebody else who's talking, that person had no right to speak for it, because I'm the one who sets the principles for the organization. And I'm telling you all of this so that we're setting it in stone, that nobody will ever, if somebody tells you something else, if the existing structure doesn't go along with it, a government still derives its power from the people. People are going to be empowered to be running for office. Average people without any money won't cost any money to run for office because as president, because we don't need to have the dark money controlling the elections. All of this stuff goes up. Now, I'm setting this in stone so that nobody will accept anything else but what is happening now. And basically that's what it is, because why would anybody agree to to something that is so unfair, people would think about themselves as saying, I have to maintain this power base. We have to be able to wage war. We have to protect our country. We have to wage war. And then at the same time, people are going, if disputes can be settled in court, why would anybody have to spend billions, hundreds of billions of dollars on maintaining a military? Can't there be a diplomatic solution to this? Because why do we have to stay in medieval thinking, middle-aged thinking that is so outdated? Everything is moving forward except the idea of national defense. So that's what it is. It's nobody's ever going to accept anything that is so outdated and so unfair and goes against this idea. Why would anybody sign up for the military when disputes can be settled in court? But there is a reason why it will, and that is because the troops coming home from war can work on infrastructure. Instead of the U.S. military being a military force for maintaining our national security, and the problem with it is Russia and China, they're very powerful. China is more economic. Russia is military. Not a very good economy, but a really good military, and they spend a lot of money on missile systems like hypersonic missiles, the nesting doll idea where they can take out all of our satellites. They can just pull out and crunch our satellites. Then there's torpedoes that can come up on land. And considering most of our democratic cities, most of the population lives along the coast, if Russia can do that, they can wipe out a lot of our major cities and most of the democratic population. And then do we really want the United States to be turned over to Russia? I'm not in agreement, and I don't think anybody really is. Putin might be, but that's not how this works. We have to have a way to go up, to function on a higher level, to evolve rather than to devolve into war. Okay, so that's where it is now. I ask you to like, share, and subscribe, but most of all to subscribe because this information is important. Okay, so thanks for stopping by, and I ask that you just think about it, debate it, talk about it with your family and friends. Most of all, share, because you don't even have to share this way, but share with your family and friends because they need to know that there's a way for mankind to go up. Okay, that's all for now. I'll go into all of these steps in much greater depth next time. Thanks.